Welcome everyone. It is my privilege to welcome among us today a philosopher and author, Acharya Prashant.
Philosophy becomes a thing of the masses without losing its quality at all.
Acharya Prashant is a globally renowned philosopher and a national best-selling author with more than 160 books to his name. This evening, we also have with us Dr. Saurabh Todaria. Dr. Saurabh Todaria is a professor of philosophy at IIIT Hyderabad.
One of the primordial mode of philosophy, whether in Greek philosophy or in India, was the dialogue.
He earned his PhD in philosophy from Jawaharlal Nehru University and specializes in phenomenology, Kantian philosophy, artificial intelligence, consciousness, and the philosophy of mind. Dr. Saurabh Todaria also serves as a member of the NCERT textbook development team for philosophy textbooks for classes 11 and 12. His recent publications include The World as Affordances, Phenomenology and Embeddedness in Heidegger and AI, along with Synthesis and Transcendental Ego, a comparison of Kant and Husserl. Friends, please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Acharya Prashant and Dr. Saurabh Todaria.
Why some people choose the philosophical path? Why this suffering?
Philosophy becomes a thing of the masses without losing its quality at all. Philosophy is for each one of us because all of us are alive and we all do suffer, don't we? It's your will. It's your will. It's your will. We want to get into the depth of things as philosophers. But why? And for whom?
And as you correctly mentioned, the philosophical question starts from the existential crisis.
Why would one question if one is already settled? So one has to be sensitive. So for young thinkers like the ones present here, it is very important to let their own inner self be the criteria, the measure. Not that you were so much in bondage that you lost all agency. That never happens. Never happens. And the complete but incomprehensible answer is
Namaste Acharya Prashant ji, and I welcome you on behalf of our institution, and this is a great honor to share the stage with you. So philosophy is a very old discipline in India. It is as old as, like the idea of the civilization in India, and Sharddarshan has come from this land. And there is also like a Buddhist, Jainism, Chavak philosophy. But on the other hand, we also find there is another stream of philosophy in India with the people like Acharya Rajneesh, Chiddu Krishnamurti, Ramesh Palaskar, Nisargadatta Maharaj, who basically use the philosophy as a tool to address the basic fundamental existential problem. So how do you see this distinction between there are the one philosophers, academic philosopher, who are not able to connect with the mass. On the other hand, the people like J. Krishnamurti and you yours can connect with the people actually, which are able to relate with the people. So can you tell us from your own journey when resolving the philosophical carries of the people?
First of all, I thank the institution for inviting me, and I'm really glad to be here. Discussing questions on existence, life, meaning with bright minds. You see, it's about the relationship of philosophy with life itself. In very bare terms, we know what philosophy means. Love for the truth. So philosophy stands with its arms stretched out towards the truth. And that's such a beautiful thing. Think of the philosopher. Think of the philosopher as somebody reaching out to the skies. And that's a wonderful sight to behold. But then that remains a thing between the philosopher and the sky. What the teachers have really done is that they have extended one arm to the sky and the other arm to the ego. And that's also the proper function of philosophy, to act as the bridge between life and liberation. At one end of the philosophy, there must always be the ego and its suffering. And the moment that connection is established with the philosopher acting as the bridge, philosophy becomes a raging fire. Philosophy becomes a thing of the masses without losing its quality at all. Because the fundamental concern of all philosophy, and very strikingly in all Indian philosophy, is suffering, human suffering. And we all do suffer. And philosophy looks at this suffering, wants to understand it, and wants the liberation of the sufferer. So that's a universal concern. Basically, that means philosophy is for each one of us because all of us are alive and we all do suffer, don't we? And if we do suffer, then philosophy is for each one of us. But where the academic philosophers, should I say struggle, is that they do profound work, but the work remains a little incomplete. The relationship between the philosopher and the truth is well established, deep, authentic, but the relationship between the philosopher and the suffering ego, which is the masses, that doesn't remain well developed. As a result, the bridge remains only half made. Beautiful bridge, right? But you could say something like the last mile connectivity is missing. It's a beautiful bridge, but incomplete. Even if incomplete by just one step, but nevertheless still incomplete. So the most beautiful works then remain largely limited to universities, libraries, academicians and fellow philosophers, and the masses don't benefit. The true function is when somebody like Socrates, for example, or Diogenes, or the ones in India like Saint Kabir, they decide to bring the highest philosophy to the masses. The highest for everybody, right? Without corruption, without dilution, but with application. That's when philosophy comes alive. That's when it can be not just life-changing, but age-changing. It defines the very epoch, the era. And that's what we all need today, given the multiple crises of our age.
One of the primordial mode of philosophy, whether in Greek philosophy or in India, was the dialogue. As you correctly mentioned, Socrates was someone who came to the market, asked a simple question, what is friendship? And then the conversation started. And same thing I find in the Upanishads also, that it is unlike when the Shad-darshans were developed, it became technical, but in the Upanishad there is basically the fundamental questions are asked.
Dialectical.
It's
a conversation.
Some of the thinkers have got it correctly when they were writing Panchatantra or Hitopadesh, where there were the simple stories, but they have the deep, or even in Mahabharata or in that, like the deep philosophical questions.
You see, a very basic question. We look for the truth, or the truths, whatever. We want to get into the depth of things as philosophers. But why? And for whom? So, if philosophy is not rooted in the human condition itself, if the philosopher is not moved by human suffering, then philosophy becomes largely just a mental intellectual pursuit. The moment philosophy arises from the ground of being and a compassion for the suffering one, it becomes something else. Not that it loses its philosophical rigor, but it starts living, starts breathing. It becomes a thing of the heart. And that is what has happened in India. To some extent also in Greece, in China, where there were those who said it's not just about ideas and thoughts and systems and structures and construction and deconstruction. It's about this person sitting in front of me and his relationship with me, and I don't like the condition of this one, I don't like the condition of this world. Equally, I don't enjoy being confused inside. I need clarity for the sake of my consciousness. Then philosophy becomes something very subjective, very intimate. And that's when it becomes profoundly more useful.
Yeah. First of all, there should be a philosophical question. And as you correctly mentioned, the philosophical question starts from the existential crisis. What does it mean to be? The question of the being is started in the existential philosophies are interesting also. So I want to explore with you, it's like, how do you see this connect of this questioning as the original mode of philosophy and connecting this with the existential crisis?
See, why would one question if one is already settled? So one has to be sensitive. One sees one is restless inside and very unsettled. Right? And only then can there be a question. If all is all right, if everything appears hunky-dory, then why would somebody take the pains of approaching someone to discuss, to question, to examine, to listen? Why would that happen? So, it starts from one's sensitivity to one's own suffering. It's a refusal, it's a rebellion. One says, this is what I experience, and I'm not okay with the quality of my experience. I don't like this experience for whatever reason. At the same time, I do not know where the experience comes from, who the experiencer is, and what can be done to resolve this inner condition. When the philosopher starts from here, then the whole thing becomes very different. And in fact, we need not even call this person a philosopher. It suffices to say this one is a conscious human being, alive. How can you be alive and be insensitive to your own condition? You see, when we say neti neti in context of Vedanta darshan, what is that? That's a refusal. That's a rebellion. I refuse to be co-opted. I do not think this satisfies me or even that. Yes, the crowd is that way. Yes, the convention flows that way. But how do I lie to myself? My inner condition remains restless. How do I forcibly convince myself to feel settled or at peace? So it is from this inner honesty that real philosophy sprouts. And then obviously there will be questions. And all questions are actually statements of rebellion. Please see. All questions are actually implying that one refuses to accept the established answers. Because if you look at philosophical questions, all of them can be conveniently answered in some shallow way, right? And ready-made answers do pre-exist. One has to first of all clearly say, I refuse to take these answers that are floating all around, that are socially commonly accepted. I do not take them because these answers, why? Because these answers fail to bring peace to me. The final criteria is my own inner condition. You give me an answer. If the answer is just a reflection of the question I posed, if the answer is just like putting a lid on inquiry, I refuse to be co-opted. So for young thinkers like the ones present here, it is very important to let their own inner self be the criteria, the measure. Nothing apart from that counts or suffices. We stand at this particular stage in life, and every moment, every step is a challenge with multiple choices available and ready-made answers are available a dime a dozen. But one has a life to live. One has to own his choices. Your choices cannot be a social phenomena. And if you want to own your choices, the chooser must have clarity. That's what is philosophy. Philosophy is not principally thought given by somebody else or systems provided by a certain school. Philosophy is about one's life, one's freedom, the worth of what we can call as existence. And when that is there, then one talks, one corresponds, one questions, and one refuses to accept.
Yeah, so my question is that suffering is a fact. Everybody is suffering. So why some people choose a philosophical path? Why this suffering leads to, like existential crisis in some people, while some people, people say, happy to, what is called, they are, like Kierkegaard says, like a crowd disburdens actually.
There could be an answer one can comprehend, but the comprehensible answer would also be incomplete. So we'll begin with the comprehensible answer. The comprehensible answer is that our choices are shaped by so many factors, right? When we talk of two persons being in a similar situation yet choosing differently, there is a convenient framework to explain away the difference. One could say they differ in their gender. One could say they are conditioned differently. One could say there is genetic difference. One could say they come from different kinds of economic strata and all those things. And one could say that's where the difference in choices comes from. And the complete but incomprehensible answer is ultimately, choice is sovereign. Irrespective of the environment in which the chooser makes the choice, sovereignty is still available. So there can be then no reason why a choice is made. Right? Choice then is not an effect of a particular cause. Causality cannot explain choice. Choice itself is sovereign. And what is sovereign has nothing behind it. Now, this is uncomfortable. To an extent, this is incomprehensible. We might even find it unacceptable. But this is also very empowering. It means that irrespective of the conditions without or within, you still are sovereign. You can lose everything, but never your power to choose. That is always available. Always available. So ultimately, if you say why somebody chose like that, the convenient answer would be because the conditions were this way or that way, adverse or favorable. We can, and that answer will not be incorrect, just incomplete, shallow. The real answer is choice is sovereign. It's your will. It's your will. It's your will. Which means you could have chosen something else. Not that you were helpless. Not that you were so much in bondage that you lost all agency. That never happens. Never happens.
Yeah, so I see this very interesting connection between this choice and sovereignty as a being's essential relationship with the truth. The being is, in our being, we are somehow, attracted by the truth. And again, I'm
Wonderful, yes.
connecting with your book, Truth Without Apology. That truth is something which human being cannot put on the hold. Actually, it attracts the person always. And one has to become responsible to the truth. Either one can live an inauthentic life, or one has to affirm one's sovereignty in relationship with the truth. So what because you have recently written the book on the truth. So this is a raging problem in philosophy. What is truth actually? And one is, like we all know, scientific notion of the truth. Truth is correspondence. Cat is on the mat. So if it is corresponding with the fact, then okay, that is the property of a statement, proposition. But then there is another dimension of the truth which I find interesting in your speeches, or also in this book. Like Greek called the truth as aletheia, unconcealment. It is a kind of the struggle. One has to involve into that struggle, then the truth is uncovered. And Ishopanishad also said that the face of the truth is covered with the golden veil actually, and one has to, unveil it. So how do you see this relationship between the being and the truth with respect to your book?
See, the search for truth is very misplaced right from the beginning. Searching for truth is like darkness searching for light. And if darkness searches for light, the primary concern always is to find light while remaining as one is, which is dark. If darkness is the searcher, its primary concern would be to, first of all, self-preserve. I want to remain who I am. I also want to know the truth. Therefore, it is possible that the searcher does come to a certain truth, but that truth will be a personal truth, a subjective truth. my truth. Therefore, it won't be the truth. It's like darkness says, this is my light. Had it really been light, darkness wouldn't have remained to declare the accomplishment. No? So what Vedanta would say is that the search for truth itself is a futile endeavor. You can come to something, declare it as truth, but that would be another form of falseness. Search rather than for falseness in the searcher. Instead of the searcher proceeding on the journey of finding the truth, the searcher should rather hold a mirror and encounter its own falseness. Right? How do I proceed on a long, unpredictable, probably unending journey with a faulty self, a faulty driver, a faulty vehicle? Do we do that? Do we do that? So the first thing is to search the searcher. Right? You are so eager to learn about the truth, but all your tendencies and instincts are primed towards self-preservation. So that is your primary concern, right? Not the truth. How will you then ever come to the truth? Your primary concern, I repeat, is not truth, but self-preservation. That's how the ego is. I want the truth for myself. And what will you do with the truth? Maybe brandish it, wear it on my forehead, put it on sale, use it to inflate myself or acquire power, prestige, position, something. That would be my truth for my sake. And then that is not the truth, obviously. It's something much smaller. It's something spoiled and dirtied by the touch of the one who claims to have discovered it. So therefore, the search for truth will always remain elusive. What is needed is that we search wholeheartedly for the false. Look for falseness, not for truth. And in looking for falseness, one sees that the engine is truth, that the ground is truth. Falseness will never have the guts to face itself. In looking for falseness, in boldly encountering the fact of one's own falsenesses, there is truth in action. It is only truth that inspires and empowers and enlightens one and encourages one sufficiently enough to face what is false. And in the false one, when faced, does not remain anymore. This progressive removal of falseness is what one can call as the journey of truth. An unloading, an unburdening. It is not a journey of acquisition. It is not a journey of accomplishment. It is a journey in which the traveler loses himself bit by bit, progressively, because it's an inward journey. It is not something on the outside that you can travel to and attain. The traveler has to go within and discover all that is rotten and biased, and borrowed and fearful inside. And just looking at it mostly suffices. It falls. It managed to remain within for long only because it was not seen as false, only because it was thought of as true, as real. No? When you think of something as real, you preserve it. You hold it to your heart. The moment you see it was fake, inauthentic, borrowed, the cohesion ends. That which should not be inside simply just drops. And that we can metaphorically call as movement towards the truth. But actually, it is movement away from the false, not towards the truth. The truth has no particular destination. You cannot move towards the truth. Think, what kind of paradox it would be if the ego says, I am moving towards the truth. You can move towards the truth only when you know its location, its coordinates, right? And you can know the location coordinates of only an object. So by moving towards the truth or trying to know the truth, we are de facto turning the truth into an object of the ego. The ego becomes the subject, the truth becomes the object. And that is...
This is very interesting philosophical problem you have brought out, like, like a ego and its relationship with the truth, because on the one hand it has a disadvantageous position, it is in the ignorance, yet it is seek to remove it. But again, my question is then how to distinguish between, say, the person who is on the ego trip and a seeker, genuine seeker. How do we know that? Like, okay, this is a genuine seeker and this is the person who is on the ego trip.
The genuine seeker the jigyasu, the mumukshu, will not be afraid, if not very willing, but then also not very resistant to things that demolish his identity. Obviously, when it comes, at first it shocks. At first, the instinctive reaction is to resist. But then he would welcome it upon consideration. Would say, after all, my love for my own welfare, my love for my freedom from suffering is bigger than my insistence on maintaining the status quo. So if there is something that hurts but relieves, I must admit it. That's the seeker. So the seeker, you will find open, if not welcoming, at least open towards hurt. If there is something that attacks his or her deep-rooted beliefs, the seeker won't flinch beyond a point. Being human, we all kind of wins, initially at least. But if the seeker has depth, he will say, fine, let it come to me. Let it prove me totally wrong. I'm open. So all his efforts, whether speaking or listening, will be directed at knowing where he has gone wrong. On the other hand, the one on the ego trip will be accumulating knowledge to defend himself. That's an opposite. Knowledge to test oneself, right, is one thing. Knowledge to better oneself, knowledge to dissolve oneself, that is one thing. And knowledge to fatten oneself, knowledge to secure oneself is a totally different thing. So, in the egoistic one, you will see a lot of misinterpretation, deliberate misinterpretation. Might be extremely knowledgeable, but all that knowledge will be food and fodder to the ego cannon. You teach him more and he becomes even more dangerous. Because knowledge to him is ammunition. Knowledge to him is an object to be used by the ego subject. The real seeker operates differently, altogether differently. He says, if something is coming to me, it is to be used to test myself. Clear away whatever rubbish I am holding. That is not coming to help me remain more of what I already am. That is coming to displace me from my current position, my current center, and elevate me to a better and higher position. That's the rightful function of knowledge. But most of us don't use knowledge that way. Science, for example, is used to further self-interest. No? And that's how it becomes technology. We say here is science, and we'll use science to fulfill our desires. And then technology becomes destructive. Now that's not the attitude of the seeker. You see, so many people who use technology so much have no scientific attitude at all, right? Must have seen. Thick users of technology, rather compulsive users, and still the mind is steeped in superstition and belief and prejudice. Seen such people? So what are they doing? They are using knowledge to cement their own center. On the other hand, there could be a people who say we believe in certain gods in the sky that ride the planets like chariots. So now we want to use the telescope to verify our belief. Now that's a totally different use of science. Totally different use of science. Now science is being used to check, verify one's own existing internal position. And there is an openness to correct oneself. There is a certain humility. There is a certain love for betterment, internal betterment. So these are two different centers altogether.
So interestingly, you have brought up the topic of technology. So as you know that in the contemporary debates in the philosophy of technology, so this problem has been what is the relationship between the technology and values. And one of the chief critique of technology, one of the main critique of technology, Martin Heidegger, in his question concerning technology, he says one of the problem not with the technology, with the technological mindset, where everything, with this mindset that everything can be calculated, quantified, measured. Now, what we see is that the only values which becomes important in the technology is like the instrumental values. And what we think of the value, like the value of the solitude, value of, like what we in philosophy call the intrinsic value, love for the wisdom, love for truth, love for, valuing the relationship. So the important thing is, which I would like to ask you, how do we see, we can distinguish between these two different realms, that this is the realm of the technology where technology can help, and these are the realm of the value where we have to need altogether different disposition and the mindset.
Heidegger, Foucault, Derrida, technology, words, interpretation, truth. Wonderful things to talk of. What we probably need to emphasize on is the user of the technology. And why do we need to emphasize on that? Because that is the first step. Genuine philosophy starts from the ego the self, the sufferer, the doer, the user, the consumer. Right? So that is the one at the center of everything. All our pursuits, not just philosophy. All that the self does is for itself. The moment we see that, we stop thinking so much in terms of what technology does. We start seeing it more in terms of what we do with and to technology. Is technology conscious or sentient? Well, no. So what can poor technology do? It's a question of what we do with technology. But this one, the doer, the user, the consumer, the inventor, the thinker, is easy to ignore and forget. Right? So we think in terms of the age-specific instruments. The instrumental value of technology, for example. So this is there, this is there, this is there. What is this doing? What is the impact of this on human life and society? Is it reducing us to mere utilities? We think in these terms, and it's beautiful to think that way. Nevertheless, incomplete. Because it's all our creation. The one sitting here is the creator and the consumer. So technology in itself means nothing. It depends on who you are. And that therefore is the fundamental question of all philosophy. Who am I? Who am I? With self-knowledge, everything will be put to the best use. Without self-knowledge, even the most benign of technical instruments will be put to a harmful and destructive use. We know of this. Nothing in the universe is in itself useful or useless, good or bad. It's all in the context of the self. The self is the center. By self, I mean the one who we are internally, the ego. It's all for us. If we are healthy, our relationship with all objects, including technology, would be healthy. If we are not healthy, it doesn't matter what we have been given or what we have created or invented for ourselves, it would definitely prove to be destructive. Think, for example, of an animal, a wolf or a chimpanzee, having access to cutting edge technologies. What's this beast going to do with all that? So what has happened is that science and technology have raised ahead in leaps and bounds. But when it comes to the masses, philosophy has lagged behind. Not the field of philosophy, but the spread and acceptance of philosophy. So technology is now available to everybody. You are holding it in your hands, and we all are users and consumers, right? The same cannot be said about philosophy. So internally, then we remain the wolf, the chimp, and externally we have nuclear-tipped missiles and all kinds of wonders of technology available to us. The result is disastrous. The result is disastrous. No technology is inherently bad or useless. everything can be put to a virtuous use. Right? Provided there is light within, provided there is this constant question and a reminder, who am I to do this? Don't I know my condition? Am I not sensitive and awake to my suffering? Will this fetch me what I really need? This, the new tech toy that I am now going after, have I not already had versions of it in the past? Could they liberate me from my inner angst? And if they could not, how is it possible that what a particular phone Model 10 failed to achieve, not just Model 10, models 1 to 10 failed to achieve. Now the new one has hit the market, Model 11. How will Model 11 succeed in doing what the previous ones couldn't? And please remember, we don't really buy a phone just to capture videos or to communicate. It might sound strange to hear, but whatever we do, whether it's buying a phone, or sipping a cup of tea, or entering a relationship, or entering a movie hall, it is done for the sake of the one who is within and restless. Since we are restless, hence all these actions ensue. And if all these actions come from a center of restlessness, then there can be only one valid objective behind any action, which is, would it take care of my restlessness? Would it? And if it won't, why am I wasting myself? Limited life, limited energy, limited money, limited time, limited everything. Why am I wasting myself on this if this is essentially the same as the previous 10 models? If this one is essentially the same as the previous 10 models and the previous 10 failed to deliver, the proof that they failed to deliver is that I'm looking for the 11th one. Had those 10 succeeded or sufficed, I wouldn't be in the queue for the 11th. And the 11th is not fundamentally different from the previous 10. So why am I wasting myself here? That's the approach one must have towards all objects, including objects of technology. And those objects include human beings as well. Right? I have tried a relationship or friendship or whatever situationship with this and that. And now a new one seems to be knocking. But is this one really fundamentally different? And if not, why am I now again intending to waste myself? Yeah? So that question of self-remembrance becomes very central to the thinker, to the lover, to the one who is sensitive to herself.
Yeah, so this is very important thing, like the question of self-remembrance vis-a-vis technology. But again, I would like to ask that how do you see, like in the currently, like there is a term called attention economy. Like attention is now monetized. The technology has been designed in such a way so that they can grab more and more attention because it is monetized. So people are like, I understand this is also a policy level problem, ethical problem. But what it's actually doing is like the people are spending more, they are trained in such a, conditioned in such a way that, so how do we see the problem of the self-reflection, which requires switching off from the technology?
You see, all of them want to capture my attention. It's a term that was coined in the 1970s. It's been in the making since like 50, 60 years now. All of them want my attention because they think attention is money and power. The politician wants my attention because attention is vote. The marketer wants my attention because attention is money. The family members want my attention because attention is security. They all want it. But even if they have my attention, will they get what they want? Because they have already had enough attention from enough people. Did that ever suffice? It didn't suffice for them. Now looking at the other end, where I am situated, what must I attend to? What must I attend to? I stand in a market in front of a pharmacy. I experience an ache within, as we all do. A nameless anguish. A causeless restlessness. We all experience that, don't we? Something remains restive. Mostly it is subtle. Sometimes it becomes very obvious, very glaring. You even start saying, it pains within, without knowing what that within really is. That's the most nebulous term we use, inside, within. Right? And I don't know what lies within. Instead, I'm prepared to dish out my attention to him, to her. Is it wise of me? There is something far more important, rather critical, I need to attend to. Instead of attending to that, I'm attending to his marketing, to his proposals, to his glamour, to her demands. Is that wise of me? And one needs a reminder. One needs a mirror, so that one sees that behind the normal and the clean and the healthy looking facade, there is a lot of turbulence. And it requires courage to acknowledge that turbulence. No, I am not all right within. And I don't want to just blame the world for that. I want to own the responsibility for my life, my choices, and my wellness. And if I own the responsibility, I'll attend to it. That's where then your attention goes. Is it not common sense that there must be a hierarchy of values? That you must know how to prioritize? And there are so many objects, and we want to differentiate between them and prioritize. But please tell me, to whom are all those objects? To whom and for whom are all those objects? For this subject, right? For this subject. So this subject has the highest value, should be the first one in priority. Therefore, before one attends to any subject outside, that subject could be a person, a thing, a place, an idea, whatever. Before one attends to any object outside, one has to attend to this one, the receiver and the experiencer of all objects. If this is remembered, if this is seen, and this seeing requires a lot of self-love. If this is seen, one will not allow himself to be dissipated. Yes, the entire world is a big banner, a big ad. This and that, everything is vying for your attention because they are incomplete in themselves. They too hold the false notion that if they get your attention, they'll feel fulfilled. Or if they get your money, it will suffice. So that's about them. We'll come to them later. We have to begin with ourselves. Am I all right? And if I'm not all right, and I don't know what my situation is standing in front of this pharmacy, why am I gossiping about the various kinds of medicines? And to the man at the counter, I'm saying, hey, that one, the cover looks very glitzy. New gloss, new shine. Who's the maker? Are they offering discounts? I don't know what I need because I don't know who I am. and I'm busy gossiping about the several things on the several shelves. That's what the attention economy is about and attention deficit is about. See, whatever comes to you actually comes as some kind of remedy, some kind of medicine, right? And that pharmacy has 10,000 units of them stocked there. Of what use are all those distinct medicines if you do not know the sick one? And I repeat, it takes guts and humility to acknowledge that we are internally sick. And if you are internally sick, then medicine should not be entertainment. One has to know how one is, and then one knows what to go for. One shoots that one, that and only that, and that is one pointed attention. I know what my ailment is, therefore that's what is going to be life-saving for me. That and only that one. Give, come on. No more gossiping, no more ads, no more dissipation, no more fragmentation. Give me that. And I can know that only if I first of all know myself. Right? So all these things, fragmentation of attention and all these things, they all arise from a lack of self-knowledge.
Yeah, so this is very important, that what is like this clarity about the self-knowledge, seeking what is the truth, discovering truth about oneself. Another dimension which I think have been missing is actually, especially in the philosophy and also in the sciences, is relationship between the art and the truth. So basically, especially in the Enlightenment, when the truth was considered as a scientific truth, fact, and in India and in the other Western tradition, it was also argued that when the Buddha is saying that suffering is the fact of the world, or somebody when in the truth fiction writes and says, okay, life is a struggle. So it is not like a subjective statement. I'm saying I like Coke or I don't like this brand. They are making some truth claim actually on the basis of the experience they have in the life. Now, how do we see that? And Indian, what I again coming back, like in India, there is a beautiful concept of sahidrata, that when you read the plays and the literature, so when you empathize with the character, because you yourself is suffering from something, and when you relate to their condition, it developed a kind of the empathy, sahidrata with the character, which ennobles your character, edify your character. So how do you see that the relationship?
The Buddha did say that life is suffering, that suffering is fact, but it didn't say suffering is inevitable. Never, never. Go to the fourth noble truth. Suffering is not inevitable. The entire purpose of philosophy is liberation from suffering. So if suffering is inevitable, then there is no point getting into anything. Suffering is optional. Suffering comes from our misplaced subjective choices, right? So, truth is not really fact. Kant, for example, he said categories and forms and all those things, and we construct whatever there is in the mind is actually very carefully either picked or constructed by the ego for the sake of self-preservation. For the sake of self-preservation. Yes, facts don't lie, but don't we choose our facts? When the ego can't escape facts, it would pick and choose. Cherry picking. And whenever possible, it would totally avoid facts. It would get into imagination. Imagination that has nothing at all to do with facts. And when you slap the facts in its face, it will accept them partially, selectively, as per convenience. This fact I want to pick, this I don't. I would turn a blind eye. Or I would say, well, the authenticity is disputed. Go and fact check, or the source itself might be biased. Data integrity is a problem, all those things. So we suffer for a reason. There is a reason. That's the Buddha's philosophy. There is a reason. And the reason is subjectivity. The reason is that the subject keeps itself at the center of everything. The more the subject is present, the more present is suffering. The more one is present in his or her own life, the more life becomes suffering. So our facts, it sounds strange, but even our facts are subjective. Yes, imagination, projection, fiction, we all readily see that's subjective. But even in our facts, there is a lot of subjectivity. Lot of subjectivity. Think of, for example, the climate debate, right? The climate denialists who declare climate change is a hoax, they come up with a lot of facts. They don't dare to come up with fiction in front of informed committees and scientists and empowered panels. They can't do that. But what do? They come up with convenient facts. And they try to establish causation where there is none. Right? So the subject is at the center of everything. And the primary concern of the subject is to just remain as one is. The subject is a very fearful one. Who is the subject? This one, I. This subject is just so afraid. Why is it afraid? One then has to go into the fact of its genesis, its very construction. Where does the ego subject come from? It comes from the flow of evolution in the physical sense, and then from social and temporal conditioning. That's where it comes from. And none of that is eternal or time or place independent. All of that is something that changes and thereby dies every moment. Evolution itself means continuous change. And social norms to change from time to time and place to place. And that's what the ego is made of, the subject. Who am I? The one made of several influences I have gathered over time, either in the body or in the mind. The body too is just a collection of influences, right? We know how evolution proceeds. So that's what I take as the self. And this self is a motley collection of all kinds of disparate influences. And it calls itself as the I. This is who I am. Obviously, it will be very afraid. This subject is always insecure because it knows its reality somewhere. Even if it doesn't know its reality, it experiences something is amiss. Something is terribly wrong with my being. Because our being is all second-handed. Being is all second-handed, accumulated from here and there. One is born as a woman, one thinks of herself as the woman. But then you never chose to be a woman. You never chose to be a woman. And now you are terribly identified with the body and therefore with your womanness. And you will be therefore insecure. You carry certain beliefs because they came to you from the flow of tradition. But you have never checked them. Therefore, within, you will be insecure. That's the state of the subject. Because it is an accumulation. It is a blind accumulation. Seen all kinds of blind accumulations? They happen during rain. Debris from here, and rainwater causes it to flow down the drain, and then at some place there is an obstruction and it all accumulates. Seen that? That's how the ego is. That's the subject. That's the subject. Now, can this subject have any coherence, any integrity? No, nothing. But it exists as if it is one homogeneous mass, which it is not. Which it is not. I say I, but I'm not homogeneous. I'm a collection of fragments that don't talk to each other. I'm a collection of ideas and beliefs that don't internally reconcile. Therefore, I would always be internally very shaky, very uncertain, and I won't know what to do. And that shows up in our life decisions. One doesn't know what to pursue next. One doesn't know which stream to choose in engineering. One doesn't know whom to marry. One doesn't know when to break up. One doesn't know where to settle. One doesn't even know whether to buy a shirt. And one asks, is this one looking good on me? Think why happens. Why does it happen? Because there is no integrity inside. The subject, I repeat, is a collection of random influences. There is no central idea there. There is nothing to hold the various pieces of the ego together. Hence, the fundamental concern always is to somehow stay alive. Because the end is always imminent. But you are carrying something fictitious within. It can end any time. Any time it can just come to a shattering. Gone. Now, if this is the inner condition, please see, how will we be feeling continuously? Will we have an affection for greatness? No. Will we have stamina for meaningful, large endeavors and projects? No. Will we be able to keep the others' welfare above our own ever? No. Why? Because the primary concern would always be to somehow stay alive internally, not physically. Physically is all right. We are all young. I mean, you are all young. Physically is all right. But internally, it's always very, very, very doubtful. We are always ready to be shattered within, because that's the nature of the thing, the space we call as within. That's the very nature of the space. Therefore, there can be no greatness, no love, no beauty. All that remains is a pathetic concern for self-preservation, pathetic and continuous and unrelenting. Do we see this? So this subject, as long as it remains unexplored, all other kinds of enquiries are wasteful. Not just wasteful, harmful. Harmful, very harmful. You'll clear away the forests. You'll tear into the heart of the planet. You'll make hundreds of species go extinct every day. You'll exploit in the name of love. All kinds of nonsense and cruelty emanate from this unillumined core of mankind. So how to replace it with something radiant, resplendent? You can't, you don't have to replace. You simply have to remove. Therefore, philosophy really, whenever it has assumed depth, has been negative in character. Negative in the sense that it aims at removal rather than replacement. And that terrifies the ego even more. The ego says, yes, this is rotten and borrowed and fractured, and it contains something toxic, yet I at least have it. Yet I at least have something to hold. And you are telling me this is second-handed, this is just flowing to you from tradition, that this is the wolf and the chimpanzee in the jungle in form of your body. You're telling me all these things about this, but please tell me, what do I have if not this? So if you want to take this away, kindly replace. That's how we insist, right? If you want me to accept that this is rotten and useless and harmful, then kindly replace. But real philosophy doesn't replace, it simply removes. And that's where something important comes in, something so important, and Western philosophy totally lacks it. Faith. Faith. By faith, I do not mean trust or belief or the religious or traditional kind of systems. I'm not talking of them. Faith is the courage. Faith is rather the carelessness. I don't bother what happens once I drop it. It suffices that this is toxic. I'll not ask for a replacement. I'll be bold enough to drop it without caring for a substitution or the future. I don't bother what happens in the future. That's faith. Unless that faith is there, philosophy won't succeed. It cannot succeed. Because philosophy will reveal to you all that which deserves to be dropped. But how will you drop it? You will say, I'll go lonely. Yes, my boyfriend is a lusty beast, but I at least have somebody to walk besides. And he carries my bag, doesn't he? Yes, he's an animal, but he does carry my bag and open the door. Otherwise, what will happen to the profile pic? I'll appear so lonely. A desperate loser. Nobody besides me. So you ask for a replacement. Philosophy is the courage to do the right thing without asking for a guarantee, without caring for the future. And that's faith. That's the real meaning of faith. Do we see this? Because this is a gathering, you see, of your students, nothing lacking in intellect. What we lack sometimes in is faith. We do see often where things are rotten, there and here, both. We do see that. But then we say, something is better than nothing. Or one bird in hand is better than two in the bush, something of that. Dare to be alone. That void is what the Buddha would call as the truth. A great pure emptiness. Empty not of something auspicious, empty of suffering. Nirvana. Am I reaching out? No? You all have good IQs. You do see what's wrong there and here often, don't you? But then that thought comes in the way. If not this, then what? Sir, don't worry. This that ought to be removed is the one making you ask the question, if not this, then what? When this goes, the question goes along with it. This that you are holding on to is the one inducing insecurity in the holder. This is the one inducing insecurity in the holder. As long as you hold it, this will make you ask the question, if not this, then what? The moment you drop this, you have also dropped the question, if not this, then what? Don't worry. You'll be all right. That's faith.
Yeah, so I think this is a very important dimension of faith you brought out. And I think in Upanishad talks about faith, even Western philosophy, Kierkegaard talks about leap of faith actually. And but I think it's a high time we open it for the discussion, and the students must be having and others, lot of queries.
Just download the Acharya Prashant app, and there you go to the community section, and you have live testimonials streaming in at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes. I'm seeing lives change in thousands, if not millions, every day in front of my own eyes. We are doing it.
Right.
We have actually done it.
Join the community of more than 2 lakh participants on the Acharya Prashant app. Your first month is completely free. You'll get full access to Gita Mission. On the app, you will get regular live sessions, daily exclusive conversations with Acharya Prashant, access to the vibrant Gita community, wisdom exams, curated news, audiobooks, quotes, and much more. Search Acharya Prashant on Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download now.